Good morning, everybody. My name is Simon Akeroey, as you just heard, and I am Vice President of Corporate Strategy at Amadeus. Amadeus is the world's leading provider of technology to the travel industry. And my role within Amadeus is to look for trends and new business models and to try and connect Amadeus to those companies that we think will shape the future of travel. And we believe the future of travel is going to be huge. And we believe that startups are going to be a very key part of that. I see a lot of young faces. They're all potential entrepreneurs looking to launch their own company, make lots of money in travel. So this session is dedicated to you, and I hope I can inspire you to take some action, think of some problems to solve, and get started. So, the travel industry. You may be surprised to know just how big the travel industry is. Steve talked earlier on about GDP. So GDP is the measure of all the services and products that are created by a country. And if you add all of those together, they make a huge $75 trillion number. And with 10% of that is in travel. So for every $10 created by the world, $1 is created in travel. So it's a huge opportunity that is ready to be tapped. More things about travel. Travel creates 284 million jobs. So if you think about the total population of Thailand and times it by 4, that's all the people working in travel today, taking up jobs, providing services for people to move from one place to the next, working in hotels, working in airlines, working in rail companies. So a huge amount of people employed by the travel industry, to the point where 1 in 11 jobs are dedicated to travel. So a lot of people involved in travel. And all those people try to move travelers from their origin to their destination. And many times that's within your home country, that's domestic travel, and sometimes it's international, cross borders. There are 1 billion cross-border travelers per year, creating an opportunity to service them at destination, provide them services for foreign exchange, provide them services on the plane, any means of transport across the border, 1 billion people traveling. And when they get there, they spend $1,000 each, which means travelers overseas are spending $1 trillion. It's very important for Thailand because you're a strong player in the inbound tourism sector. So many of those travelers are coming to Thailand to spend money, which is great for you. You future Thailand entrepreneurs who are going to be tapping into this supply that's coming in. More good news, we are in the right place. Most of the time you'll find that you're in the wrong place at the right time. This time, we're in the right place at the right time. 2 out of every 5 travelers by 2020, which is only 4 years away, 2 out of every 5 travelers will be Asian. 40% of travelers will be Asian, but even better than that, they spend a lot more money than average. So 40% of travelers will actually spend 50% of travel spend. And again, many of them coming to Thailand. So it's a big industry, we're in the right place, and the future looks even better. It's growing very fast. If you look at where it's growing, the growth, the engine of growth for travel is in Southeast Asia. The number 1 growth market in travel is Southeast Asia at nearly 8%. That's far bigger than the average of all industries together. So travel is growing faster than the rest of the world's industries. Number 2 is South Asia. So whichever way you look at it, Southeast Asia or Indian subcontinent, you're in an engine of growth. That growth is leading the charge in global growth, travel growing faster than the average, pulling up the average globally, but being driven by this region. And this last point I put in here for you especially, in the next 10 years, Thailand will be number 2 on the league of countries where people spend the most money. So inbound travelers will be spending more money in Thailand in 10 years' time than they do in China and Spain. So you'll only be number 2 against the US. And let's face it, the US is pretty big, so that's very good for Thailand. To recap, you're in the right place at the right time. And this growth of opportunity has been recognized by the startup industry, the funding behind the startups. So in 2014, the balance tipped, and now there's more money put into startups in travel in Asia than anywhere else in the world. So in the right place, we have the population, and now we have the money for startups. So everything is primed for your future entrepreneurial efforts. And we encourage you to get started. So we're in a huge opportunity, and I just want to say a little bit about how we classify travel, this big opportunity that's growing very fast and you're in the right place. So this is how we break down travel in Amadeus. There are two layers. Think of them as one layer above the other. The bottom layer is a network of providers. You have airlines and hotels and airports and car companies and rail companies, and they all have businesses to run, and they all need to sell, and they need help selling. So the travel industry gives them the means, the technology and the processes to help them sell and help them communicate with each other. And on top of that, you have a traveler. And no matter where you're traveling to, no matter how short your trip, it could be a taxi ride, an Uber, or it could be a 2-week holiday abroad, you will always go through the same 6 stages of the process. So these 6 processes interconnect to form any trip. It starts with inspire. This is where you're thinking, where do I want to go? What interests me? How would I like to spend my time? There's a lot of effort spent trying to inspire you to travel somewhere and travel somewhere exotic or somewhere fun, but also inspiring you to move within your national country. Once you've been inspired, you start to look for that trip. Start to search around on the internet. You go to Agoda, you go to Expedia, you go to your online travel agency, and you start to search for your trip. But eventually you'll find something you like, and then you'll book. Then you move into a phase called pre-trip. So you've booked your ticket, and you know you're going to go somewhere, but there's a time to wait. If it's an Uber car ride, it's a very short time. But if you're going on a holiday, you then maybe have 2 months. And that 2 months is really important. That's 2 months where we know where you're going to go. We know who you are. We know whether you're traveling in business class or in economy. We know whether you're traveling with your family. We know whether you're a man or a woman. So we can pitch things to you, sell to you during that time between when you book and when you actually start to travel. That's a sector of the value chain that has been very underserved. So if you're looking for an idea where you can make money as a startup, I suggest you look in either that pre-trip phase or on-trip. At some point, you move into the time when you're actually traveling, and that time when you're traveling starts when you leave your front door. When you leave your front door and you get in the taxi or get on the train to go to the airport, that's when your trip starts. You then go through the airport, on the plane. At the other side, you get another taxi, go to the hotel, maybe take a tour. This is your on-trip experience, and that sector has also not been focused on by the travel industry. So if you want to come up with ideas that will make money that no one else is doing, think about the on-trip experience. And then post-trip, when you've finished your trip, you post your review to TripAdvisor. You write your review about the hotel that you stayed in or about the tour that you had. And that then feeds into inspiration. That gets the next traveler thinking about how to start the cycle again. So the key for making money in travel is to get these 2 layers to work one on top of the other. All of these providers on the left-hand side of your screen, they need to talk to each other, and they want to sell something to the traveler at every stage of his trip, all 6 phases of the trip. Remember those 6 phases, because I'm going to refer to them a lot. So this is how Amadeus has built its business. We put ourselves between those 2 layers. We help the travel providers talk to each other. We help them build efficiencies and do their job better. But we also help them connect to the traveler, wherever the traveler is, and through predominantly travel agencies. We can sell the tickets of the air companies, the rooms of the hotels, the tickets on the rail companies. We can sell insurance. We can help the airports move passengers around the airport. This is about Amadeus, but I don't really expect you to look too much at the numbers, but what I want you to take in from it is that Amadeus is a successful company. So the stock market values us at $20 billion. It's a reasonably big company. We have 14,000 employees, and we're in 195 countries. That's more countries than the UN, and it's in more countries than McDonald's. We're a very global company. We beat our competitors, and we've had steady growth. If you look at the blue line on this chart, we're the only one of the competitors that's growing very steadily. So we're successful in a big industry. So the next question is, why do we need startups? Why are startups important to us? If we're in a big growing industry and we're doing well, why is it that we need startups? And startups provide a very special, specific thing which we can't do. If you look at the big ship on the left-hand side, that's the Amadeus. That's many big corporations. We execute a strategy and we go in a straight line. It's very difficult to turn that big boat quickly. It doesn't turn. It can't do something for a little bit and then jump back on its main course. It can't do that. It has to go all the way through. For startups, okay, they're small boats, but they're very flexible boats. They're boats that can take opportunities that we can't take. They are opportunistic. They look for very specific problems, and they try and understand those problems very deeply. And once they've understood them and they find the answer to them, well, then maybe we might buy them. But we need to help them to find those ideas, to find problems worth solving. I urge you as a potential startup to be very clear about the problems that you want to solve. Make sure it is a problem worth solving. We see lots of startups that begin ideas that are nice to have. Nobody will pay for it, it's just nice to have. But if you're going to be one of those little boats, pick a problem worth solving and go very deeply into that problem. Once you've cracked it, the big corporations like Amadeus will be very happy to pay you for it and to take on board your experience. So when we work with startups, there are a few things that we're very forceful about, and one is the use of the lean methodology. You don't need to be a startup to read a book about lean methodology, but it will be the best investment of time you will ever make if you want to be a startup. About 15 years ago, the idea of startups was you place a big bet on one idea, and hopefully, in 15 years' time, there'll be a solution to a problem, and then you could be a very valuable company. But now things have changed, and what startups try to do is move in very small incremental steps. You do something, you measure it, see if the audience likes it. If they like it, you do more of it. If they don't like it, you stop it and you do something else. And that build, measure, learn process is extremely important in your future success. It helps you by checking with your customer regularly. It helps you make sure that what comes out at the end of your startup is something that the market really needs. A problem that's worth solving with a customer that will pay for it. I can't tell you how much this is critical to the success of a startup. So Amadeus enforces this methodology as part of our Working with Startups program, for which we've created a community. I think like a lot of corporates, we thought that startups would need money from Amadeus, but they don't need money from Amadeus. They need mentorship. They need mentoring, they need help about technology, they need help about reaching customers. Once they have those things, they can find money from other people. Maybe we'll put the money in, that's not a problem for us to pay. But at the beginning, what they need is support and mentorship. So we created this community where we put startups at the center, and around it, we have all of the other elements they need. They have marketing, they have events coordination, they have investors. In the bottom right-hand corner, we have government backing, and we have the support of corporates. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they all want to join our program to put money into startups. So if you have a good idea in travel, come and speak to us. We'll be able to help you deliver that idea. We'll be able to put you in touch with some of these players. The microsite to visit is next.amadeus.com. I'd be very happy to talk you through that and to discuss your ideas, should you have any. So this is how Amadeus is addressing startups. In the course of working with startups, and in the course of my role of looking for trends and new business models, I've come down to 5 things that I think will shape the future of travel. So these are the 5 trends that I think will disrupt travel the most in the future, and these are the ones to focus on. These are the ones that so far haven't been exploited to the maximum by startups. Those 5 things are the Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things is the connectivity of systems around the world. Systems that can talk to other systems automatically. Objects which are connected to the Internet can talk to those systems. And by all of these systems talking to each other, you create a network of knowledge passing one stage of a journey to the next stage of a journey. It becomes a very powerful network to be tapped into by entrepreneurs. Second one, smart city. There's a presentation later on today about smart city. Governments are putting money into smart city. Helping people move around cities is a natural place to start. The sharing economy, I think we're moving into a new phase in sharing economy. I'll talk a bit later about that. Messaging apps and artificial intelligence. The fact that you think you're talking to a person online, on the app line, you're probably not. It's probably a chatbot talking to you until it gets so complicated that then someone will take over the interaction. But mostly you'll be talking to a chatbot. And then virtual reality and augmented reality. So wearing the Google glasses, wearing the Oculus Rift will be virtual reality. That's how you'll search for travel in the future. Holding your phone up or hearing something when you're walking on a tour, that will be the future. That will be information how you receive when you're on the move. And these 5 things are the 5 that we believe will have the biggest impact on changing the future of travel for you to tap into. So, one by one, how am I doing for time? One by one. So we'll go with the sharing economy first. This started off very much about putting one person in touch with another and taking out the intermediary. If somebody had a room to let, room to rent out, you find the traveler directly. That was the first model. But now we're starting to see there's a problem. If you have one room that you rent for 1 week, that's easy. But if you have 20 rooms that you rent every week, it starts to become a problem. And so now what we see happening is intermediaries coming in, management companies coming in to take over the responsibility of finding people to rent the room, of doing the check-in, check-out, managing the cleaning. The peer-to-peer economy is not going to stay peer-to-peer. The peers will be separated and companies will put themselves in the middle to provide services to the peers either side. And I think that's fundamental. You'll start to see, beyond the intermediation of peer-to-peer, this phenomenon as well. Major brands, companies that you know, Airbnb, TripAdvisor, Uber, they have all of the travelers that you're ever going to need to connect with. They've consolidated them all into single platforms. And now those companies are pulling services provided by other companies, maybe startups, pulling them into their application. So when you go to Airbnb, you can get a room, but soon you can get a flight. You can book a tour. You have a lot of services being pulled in, which is great for startups, because one of the biggest problems for startups is finding the end consumer. How do you find the end consumer if you're a small startup with a very small marketing budget? The good news is now you don't need to, because these guys have done it for you. Messaging apps. I'm a big fan of messaging apps for many reasons. My first reason is that they are being led by Asia. WeChat is by far the best messaging app in the world. WeChat makes $7 per active monthly user. WhatsApp, the American alternative, makes 6 cents. So WeChat has perfected the art of connecting to a consumer and selling services to that consumer through one interface. Very closely followed by Line, predominantly in Japan, but a lot in Thailand. And the last one, Kakao Talk, is in Korea, and everybody uses it in Korea. So this is now how you're going to be buying retail products. This is how you buy travel. The travel offers will be pushed to you through these apps. There'll be no more going to online travel agents, no more going to high street travel agents. This information, your trip, will be sent to you through these apps, and then when you're on your trip, moving through the cycle, the Inspire search, book, on trip, pre-trip, you'll take that messaging app with you, and that's how you'll receive all of your information. There are hotels in Vegas where your room key is sent through WeChat. So they're sent a QR code through your WeChat app, and you show it to the door, and the door opens. WeChat is at every stage, and Line and Kakao Talk will be at every stage soon. Internet of Things. So when you move around on your trip, and all of the systems you interact with, when they're all speaking to each other, it helps you do a lot of things. It helps you increase the efficiency of moving. If your suitcase is connected to the internet, when you walk into the airport, first the airport knows you've arrived, so it can check you in automatically. And then when you drop your bag at the airline counter, everybody knows where that bag is everywhere in the airport. We know when it gets lost, we know when it goes to another country, we know where it's going to be in 3 minutes' time. So the fact that all of these things are connected creates efficiency in the travel chain. So there'll be a large amount of efficiency brought about by the Internet of Things, and there'll be a large amount of recovery, which is when things go wrong, you miss your flight. Well, the system knows you missed your flight because you didn't arrive at the airport, and we know you didn't arrive at the airport because your phone is still GPS located in the traffic jam on the way to Suvarnabhumi. So we can take some action. We can recover quickly. So yes, you arrived late, but we can say, we know you arrived late, we've rebooked you on a new flight. So those things about efficiency and recovery will all be facilitated by the Internet of Things. The interesting thing about the Internet of Things, though, is that I don't believe that's where the money is. The money is in a stage somewhere further. Those first two are just about automating problems that we know today. The real value of Internet of Things is how biometrics, so things measured on your Fitbit, things measured by wearable clothing, how are they going to impact travel? When you work out how those future things that we can't even imagine yet, when you work out how they're going to impact travel, that, I believe, is going to be the big chunk of value. And that's where startups will come in. Amadeus can't do that. We don't have the skills. We can't focus on a single piece of knowledge like startups can. Startups will solve the problem of how the Internet of Things in the real value-added space is going to affect the on-trip experience. Smart City. I won't talk too much about Smart City because there's a session later today, but there are 6 components to a Smart City. So this is where governments are trying to make their city more interconnected and make it easier to live in as a national. So the smart economy, smart environment, smart government, smart people, smart living, they're all great, and I think they are fantastic ambitions for a government, but I think the one that they'll start with first is mobility. If you live in Phuket, you don't need help getting around Phuket. Not as much as the traveller who arrives here for the first time. The impression that Phuket gives to the traveller of a smart city is the easiest inroad for a government to go down. You make the connection of the airport to a railway system or to a bus transit system or to a fleet of taxis easy. You put beacons around the city to tell people where they are. You facilitate the movement of people, particularly visitors, and it's a very easy start for governments who are trying to build a smart city. We speak to a lot of airports. They have money to take this first step and build a smart city. Virtual reality and augmented reality. This is the last one of the 5. This is by far my favorite one because we're now looking at ways of doing this. What we've tried on this slide to do is map virtual reality and augmented reality to the value chain. So virtual reality, you put your glasses on and you're taken into a 3D simulated world. So sometimes it's very interactive, sometimes it's a 360-degree photo. And as you move, the images move around you. This is great for inspiration. If you wanted to know what it's like to stand at the top of the Eiffel Tower and you put your virtual reality headset on, you can see very much what that's like. You can feel to some extent what it's like to be at the top of the Eiffel Tower, and it inspires people to book travel. We haven't quite got to the point where the inspiration can turn into a purchase. But I think that's one of the next problems that startups will be working on. How do you, when you're looking at your virtual reality view from the top of the Eiffel Tower, how do you book that tour? How do you book the hotel you need? And how do you book the flight in the 3D virtual reality world? So we see VR at the inspiration phase. Then when you move around to on-trip, I think you start to see the value of AR, augmented reality. You'll see Pokemon Go on the augmented reality. That's the first mass adoption of augmented reality. When you switch from your virtual map world to your real world, and you start to see the same images through your phone camera that you did on the virtual world, that's a meshing of reality and virtual reality. And they give you information, or they could give you information through that. So there are apps being produced where you hold up your phone to a building, a national heritage site, and the information will come through your phone to you and it will tell you about that site. Or it might push an offer to you, a discount coupon to you. These are ways that you are interacting with reality to get something extra through it. Often it'll be through your phone, sometimes it'll be through your ear. There's a company we work with called Audio Compass, and they'll do that for you. Oh, there's a very cool app about movies. So you hold the phone up to a building, and it will play back scenes from the movies that were filmed in that spot. You have a look on Google, it's very good. And then the last phase, where we see virtual reality and augmented reality impacting travel, is at the last trip, the review stage, where you're going to put your review on TripAdvisor or on Facebook. You can now buy a relatively cheap 360-degree camera. You hold it in the air, and it takes a 360-degree view of everything around you. And you can post that on Facebook. So your friends will now share your experience of travel by holding their phone up, looking at your 360-degree photos, moving around like that. That's how we complete the cycle. So those shared 360-degree videos will move into inspiration, and we complete the cycle again. So those are the 5. This is my recap for you. So the 5 things that I think will shape the future of travel, the 5 things where I think startups should focus their attention are the Internet of Things, the sharing economy, smart city, messaging apps, and virtual reality and augmented reality. Those are the 5 big pockets of opportunity for startups to disrupt. I urge you to focus on those 5 things. That's where the money is. And when you're doing it, I want to remind you of the 4 things that I think are the most important for startups to bear in mind. You'll see a lot of the workshops and seminars, the presentations today will tell you what to do as a startup. These 4 things are the 4 that we've learnt with Amadeus Next. They are: start using lean methodology from the beginning. Keep checking with your customer. Are you doing what the customer is ready to pay for? Make sure you define a problem that somebody is willing to pay for, not just a nice to have. Having a nice app on a phone that no one looks at and no one's ready to pay for might be a nice app, but you're not going to succeed as an entrepreneur. Pick a problem worth solving. And last but not least, you can't do it on your own. You need to collaborate. Collaborate with each other. Try to collaborate with the Airbnbs, the TripAdvisor, the people that have mass appeal already. Connect to mentors. Join the entrepreneur network. Come and join Amadeus Next. Try to get as much help as you can. You will need as much help as you can, and you'll need to collaborate with other startups in order to succeed as an entrepreneur. So that's it. The 5 trends, the 4 things to focus on. If you do have an idea, please come and talk to us. You can find us at next.amadeus.com. And thank you for your attention. It's a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you.
Mr. Simon Akeroey, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, your experience and expertise on the future travel. Thank you very much once again.